Welcome to Stayin, everybody, the third workshop this semester. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Karan Chaudhary, your host, and I'm a master's student here at Dalhousie University, where I just defended my thesis in biophysics. From this research, my team and I have started our company, 3D Biofiber Incorporated, and it's a startup in the biomaterial manufacturing space. This journey from research to industry has been extremely exciting, a ton of work and quite challenging at some times, but that change of pace has been quite rewarding so far. And I'm really looking forward to being here today. Thank you for joining us. As this is your first time joining us, we're simply doing a hybrid event that is part networking and part workshop. And today we're going to start with the workshop part, where we'll learn how to launch a startup idea strong from day one using the lean model canvas. And this will be run by two entrepreneurs in residence, Derek and Julian, who you will meet in just a few minutes. And they will walk through the fundamentals of this one-page business plan about how to keep your business lean and agile, leading to its success. As I mentioned, this is the third event in an 8-part series this semester. And this series is a partnership between 7 amazing universities in Atlantic Canada that include St. Mary's University, the University of Prince Edward Island, including their Egypt campus, Memorial University of Newfoundland, Dalhousie University, the University of New Brunswick, Cape Breton University, and Mount St. Vincent University. This semester, we still have 3 workshops remaining, including the one today, so good job for being here. And they're designed to be an introduction to startup creation. You'll learn about the tools and resources you might need to get started. You'll be inspired and motivated by our speakers, and you'll build a network of like-minded people from across Atlantic Canada. There are also 2 remaining fireside chats titled Women Leading Startups. The next chat is Tuesday, October 20th at 12 Atlantic or 12:30 in Newfoundland. And these chats are brought to you by the Canadian Ecosystem Gathering and will feature a different female identifying startup founder from Canada each month. The event is open to all female identifying students who want to be part of a supportive virtual entrepreneurial community. The links for all the events mentioned are in the chat, so please sign up now as that sign up is coming soon. Also, before you leave the event today, there are going to be some virtual booths on your left that you can check out. There are a couple of amazing opportunities available for student entrepreneurs with Next 36 and Global Student Entrepreneurs Awards. The deadline to apply for Next 36 is October 14th, which is coming up pretty soon, and the deadline for Global Student Entrepreneurs Awards is October 16th. Again, check those booths out for more details and the links to apply. For today's net workshop, we partnered with Propel, Atlantic Canada's e-accelerator for technology startups. And we will have on stage Julian Robichaud and Derek Latham to tell you how to use the lean model canvas and the traction roadmap to plan and organize your startup ideas. Before I welcome Julian and Derek to the stage, I want to give an overview of how today's event will flow. Julian and Derek will give their presentation on the lean canvas. Please feel free to add questions in the stage right on your right-hand side at any point during the presentation. We will have a Q&A period at the end for any questions that weren't answered during the presentation, and we'll definitely get to them then. Following the Q&A, I will come back to the main stage and explain the networking part of today's event that will be hosted in Hopin. On that note, I would love to invite Julian and Derek to join us on the stage. Welcome, Derek and Julian. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right,
I'm
glad to have you here. I'm going to let you guys take it away, and then I'll come back after the presentation to help out with that Q&A and give a crash course on the networking. So the floor is yours.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if you guys can see my screen. Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. Super excited to be here. Julian and I are going to tag team this presentation today. I'm going to start off in the beginning. I want to thank the Atlantic Universities for setting this up. We're super happy to be here. This presentation was developed in collaboration with Ash Moira's Lean Stack platform. Propel's been using Ash Moira's Lean Stack platform for a few years now, and it's just been a really great way for us to help founders navigate what is a different type of organization, which is a startup. So I'm going to start off today just kind of with a short definition of what entrepreneurship is. So it can be a number of different things. I think why we're all here today is we're interested in a startup, and that's pursuing a new or different idea, a new way of solving a problem. It's a new organization that hasn't existed yet, and there's certain challenges that come with that. There's other definitions of entrepreneurship as well. You could buy a franchise, you could purchase an existing business, or you might be taking over your family business. Those are all different examples of entrepreneurship. They all come with their own challenges and unique sets of circumstances. So just to further illustrate that difference of what a startup is, you've got kind of existing businesses on the left, Subway and Facebook, and then on the right, we're super proud of 4 organizations that have been part of Propel within Atlantic Canada that really are kind of are startups. They're in different stages. Some have revenue, some have more revenue than others. The difference is, with Subway, you've got or Facebook, you've got a repeatable, scalable business model. It's validated, it works. On the right, you've got companies like Oliver POS and Milk Movement out of Newfoundland, Side Door out of Halifax, Snap AP out of Moncton. They're still testing a whole bunch of hypotheses about their business. So we're going to get into that a little bit more today. So there's kind of 2 different ways to kind of plan your business. The traditional way has been to write a 40 or 50-page business plan. This is probably more applicable if you're going to purchase a franchise or an existing business. A business plan details kind of your next 5 years outlook. There's probably a lot more answers than questions in here, and it tends to be a little bit more static. So it gets written, it gets presented to a bank for funding or to investors, but it's not iterative. And so when you're dealing with a startup, you're dealing with a whole bunch of assumptions. And so we think that the Lean Canvas model is a great way to start. So just quickly again, who are we? So we've both been part of the Propel organization for a couple of years. I had a career in marketing and sales before pursuing my own startup, and then have been with Propel for a year and a half. Julien, same thing. He's done a couple of different things. He's been a documentary filmmaker, and he's been working with companies as well for a year and a half. We've both met Ash, been to his in-person workshops. He's taught us how to present these concepts to founders, to work with founders on a day-to-day basis. And so we bring that experience to you today. So again, just a quick overview of the agenda for today. We're going to talk about using the Lean Canvas as a tool. We're going to talk about building a traction roadmap and what that entails, and then answer any questions that you have and just talk about what potentially comes next for you as founders. So the Lean Canvas, we consider it a tool, and I want to talk to you today about how we kind of use it. I'm going to give you a sneak preview of it. So it's got 9 different boxes, and essentially these are 9 assumptions that you're going to try and validate as you navigate from kind of startup to launch to first customers to a repeatable, scalable business model. I'm going to take you kind of through, a bit of a backstory, a basic structure, defining the problem and defining your first customers. What's the business model story? How do you build an MVP? How do you categorize your business model type and a validation strategy? So I want to talk about, you guys are all here because you have an interest in entrepreneurship. You may not be working on an idea, or currently your idea may be very early, or maybe you're just trying to explore if it's something that's for you. It's a challenging road, make no mistake about it. And I think what's important is that you focus on what makes you the right person to be doing this right now. So I think it's really important that, that it's something that, relates to your work experience, your education, relates to a passion, because it is so difficult that if it's not something that you're interested in, it's going to be very difficult. So the basic structure of the sneak preview I gave you on the business model canvas is that it's supposed to fit on one page. It can be completed by one founder. So if you're a solo founder right now, that's okay. Ideally, you can do it in 20 minutes. That's challenging, but it can be done in 20 minutes. But I think what's most important is that this is a living document. It's something that you want to continue to iterate on and test during your startup journey. And that's really what it's set up to do. So as you're looking at your business model canvas, you really start with kind of two sections. What's the problem you're solving, and who are you solving it for? And you want to look for evidence of monetizable pain within that. So is your customer going to pay for you to solve a problem for them? So we always recommend starting with these two segments. So in terms of the problem, you want to talk about what are the top 3 problems that you're trying to solve. You've thought about an idea for a startup, and you want to really think about it as a problem that needs to be solved. And you want to also think about how is that problem being solved today. And that can be solved in a number of different ways. We often say with SaaS companies that Excel is your greatest competitor. One of the challenges when you're talking about customer segments is a tendency to go too broad. So here you really want to focus in on who you're solving this problem for, and you want to get as specific as you can. And then as you go from there, you want to identify kind of who your early adopters are. And in terms of your early adopters, what does your ideal customer look like? And finally, you want to see, is there alignment here? Is the problem you're solving, are there other customers that want this problem solved? And really the way you do that is through, or how we do it with Propel, is through customer discovery. So you want to validate that the top 3, those problems that you think exist, that the customers that you think are going to buy also believe this problem exists. And there's a real art and science to customer discovery. And so when you're doing customer discovery, you want to make sure that you're not biasing those customers and just asking them if they'll buy your problem. You really want to dig into what is the problem, how are they solving it right now, why is it a problem for them? So Saul Kaplan says a business model describes how you create, deliver, and capture value. So where does that live? So this box within the Lean Canvas is your unique value proposition. So it's a single compelling message that states why you're different and worthy of paying attention to. And what's really a good trick here is to create a high level concept. For instance, I want to be the next Airbnb for parking, or I want to be the next Airbnb for whatever it is. And you want to, kind of craft this so that there's a real value creation for your customer. The next 2 boxes are your solution and your channels, and this is how you deliver value. So your solution, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail on what an initial solution looks like for a startup. But it really is, how do you define that in a way that's the most efficient in the beginning? And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. And then your channels are, how are you going to reach your customers? So if you're a B2B customer selling to large enterprises, who are you going to talk to within those organizations? How are you going to reach them? you're likely going to have an outbound sales team that's got a funnel that's, has different stages of the funnel. If you're a B2C play, talking directly to consumers, what channels are going to be the most effective? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it direct email? And finally, you want to figure out how you're going to capture value, and that is, what does your revenue stream like? So is it a one-time sale if you're developing a product? Is it a SaaS business model, which is very popular right now, where you have a predictable monthly recurring revenue each month, something that venture capitalists love to see. So as you think about your problem that you're trying to solve, kind of everyone is in a race to build their MVP really quickly. And if you've watched Dragon's Den, you know that sometimes there isn't that alignment between the problem you're solving and the customer. And the goal here really is, as you look at each of those boxes, as I mentioned before, each one of those is an assumption. And so, what we do at Propel is, we try and help founders really validate those assumptions. And we do that through customer discovery, which drives insights, which then helps you build your MVP. There's also a tendency to want to build a product before you talk to your customers. And what can end up happening with that is that you end up building the wedding cake instead of the cupcake. So the analogy here is you want to start with the minimum solution that you can to generate value for your customer, and validate that that's something that they're willing to pay for, and work with them and continue to develop that into a full-fledged solution. And this can be a long process. And essentially, what you want to do is you want to start very small, talking to your customers, doing customer discovery to validate that the problem, that you understand the problem really well. And then you want to go back to them and present a solution in the form of an offer. And you're getting feedback from them, and that can drive additional insights to help you understand the problem better, helps you redefine the solution a little bit more crisply, go back to your customers with an offer, and that's just kind of an iterative cycle as you learn. There's kind of a few different ways that you can present an offer to a potential customer. We talked about that idea of an MVP, and these are all different examples of an MVP. So the first one is just a single feature. It's very basic. It's in the case of a software, it maybe does one thing for a customer. A concierge MVP, a little different again. This is where you're still in the you haven't necessarily built your solution. You're still in the learning stage. You're still trying to discover about your customer, and so you're delivering your product or service as a highly customized service. So this is kind of like, you're kind of in the background making sure it works. You're highly, it's not necessarily scalable because it's not running automatically on its own. There's a lot of human intervention to make sure everything works well. And then the Wizard of Oz MVP is that idea that kind of everything's being pulled by strings in the background. It's creating an illusion that your customers are seeing the benefits of a complete product, but it's actually being done very manually in the background. So again, the idea here is that an MVP is really what's the minimum thing that you can create that can drive customer value, so that you can work with your customers to learn more about them and make sure that you're adding features that they really want, versus kind of going ahead and building a full-fledged solution up front and discovering, that you wasted 2 or 3 months on features that they don't really care about. This is just a little funny anecdote obviously from The Godfather. Just talking about, again, using insights to define your solution, to get to an offer that's accepted by the market, that then drives you to build that MVP. And the idea, again, is really to take the time to do customer discovery, to understand the problem you're trying to solve better in your customer's mind, and be thoughtful today so that you can be fast tomorrow. And so really where this fits is that journey around problem solution fit. And that's, again, one of the things that we do here at Propel is help companies really better define that problem solution. And that can take 3 months, it can take a lot longer. And then you go to market with your product, again, perhaps on a limited scale. You're continuing to iterate the product during the product market fit stage. And then once you've kind of achieved that, and that can take up to 2 years, and I've seen it take much longer. I've seen companies that have been very successful take 5 years to get to product market fit stage. And that's when you can really see that scale. And always remember that it's all about delivering customer value. So it's all about talking to your customers and making sure you're understanding what they value and what they're going to pay for.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna, yeah.
Yeah, you can. Do you want to just keep sharing? I think.
Oh.
Well, that's fine. I get it here. Just a sec here. Sorry, guys. Okay, good. Can you see all my screen? Yes.
Looks like it's loading. There it is.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, let me just jump on here. I'm just gonna do kind of the tail end of our presentation. Feel free if you have any questions. I'm gonna talk real quick about the different business model type that we see mostly with some of our founders. So typically they can be kind of categorized in these 3 categories where we've got direct, multi-sided, and marketplace. And this is kind of a way for you guys to maybe think about where does your type of initiative or startup fit. So I'm gonna just,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Julian, I don't think we can see your screen.
No.
Not sure why. Can you try the present button in the top right? See if that works.
Can you see it now?
Yeah, I can also share my screen if that's
Yeah, do you want to
do that.
Okay. Teamwork, guys.
So we're here.
Can you share your screen? Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you can go next. Okay, so as I was saying, we predominantly work with like companies that try to fit into like these 3 types of business model. So I'm just gonna go over them, and maybe it'll help you to kind of like decipher what you are as a startup. Go next. So obviously, you can keep going. So there's one that's really simple. Like the direct one is basically most companies that what you would see. Let's use Starbucks as an example. You're an aware visitor. You go in and you get out, and you're a happy customer. Basically, it's really simple. You get your cup of coffee. There's some that are a bit more complex. So if you think about like a multi-sided, you've got kind of the example here of Facebook that. If you click again, Derek, you've got kind of like people that are using the application, if you want, and really there's like another third party that are kind of benefiting from that traffic. So for anyone that's seen The Social Dilemma, this is kind of a good example of Maybe one of you can pop up in the chat what was the quote in the movie, like if you're not paying, that you're being the one that's being used, or anyways.
Experimented on.
Yeah, but the multi-sided is really a good way to think about that. It's you're like, the users aren't necessarily the one that is paying for like the monetizable value, as you see here. And if you keep going, so then the third place is, a typical marketplace, which, we've got Airbnb here, where it's kind of, self-explanatory. You've got people that are looking to rent, and, you've got people that are looking to host. And so you're creating kind of that marketplace. I will say, as experience with Propel, marketplaces are like really hard, because essentially you're kind of starting two companies at the same time. You're creating a whole platform for like the users and a whole platform for the host. So we do see a lot of marketplace, but it is a bit more challenging because you're really attacking both ends at the same time. So I guess think about that when it comes to what value you're trying to do. I see someone in the chat saying someone posted, "Your eyes are being rented." Thank you for whoever posted that. That's exactly what I was referring to. So think about, exactly what business model is best for you, and what are existing alternatives like that is out there. Can keep going, Derek. Keep going. So here we just wanted to show you kind of a quick glimpse of, if you look at your canvas, they're actually subcategorized to really have like the three main risks that you're trying to do with this startup. So obviously we see a lot of companies come in and they're so product focused. They think that if you can get like the most perfect product, you will have a successful company. What is great about the canvas is it forces you to explore two other avenues that is as important as the product itself. So you see here, there's like these 4 boxes, which are product focused, and these 4 that are customer focused. So really our thinking is like, get out the door, try to validate what you're doing, make sure that you've got actually customers that are interested in whatever you're working on. And finally, there's the market, right? Like, you can have the best idea, but is there a way to, generate revenue and have a sustainable business out of this? And so all of that, when you kind of put the pieces together, it should kind of lean into this thinking where you're not using your lean canvas to validate one box, but you're actually looking to validate the entire canvas. Because, back to what I was referring to, one box may be product focused, but you may have challenges related to actually have customers buying your product. So the way of thinking about the canvas, it's like, it's an organic, modifiable document that you should use constantly and validate whatever you're putting on there, to eventually have, what you see on the screen here, which is like a business model that all the boxes can be confirmed, and all your hypotheses are cleared in a way. So keep going. So this is kind of just an example of what like a business model, a canvas can look like. You don't need a lot of information a lot of times. You can just like do 2-3 bullet points saying, what's your high level thinking on each of these different boxes. One thing that we will mention as well, I don't know if you noticed, but the unfair advantage is left empty. That is usually kind of purposely done because, a lot of times when you're a startup, you don't really know yet what your unfair advantage is. Eventually it might become, the strength of your team, IP that is really different or really unique that you own. So, but it's a way for you to really think about you can do a huge business plan of 50 pages, but oftentimes you can actually have a few bullet points and really bring your idea to life on a single page. I'm going to talk real quick about the traction model. So this is the goal. Everyone that goes into entrepreneurship is looking to some sort of way of finding validation. And so a lot of people use kind of this term, which is called the hockey stick curve, not because Canada is awesome and it's the best sports in the world, but because you're going through this process at the early stage of really trying to validate what you're doing, which can eventually become kind of like a repeatable, scalable model that you can bring in other regions or really scale. So I'm just going to go through that real quick with you. So typically, in Propel, we see companies coming in like throughout from really early stage. I've got an idea on a napkin to, later in this hockey stick curve, I've got early traction, early customers.
Sorry.
No, keep going. It's good. So I'm going to actually start at the end and show you kind of like how, and like that mind shift that we just showed you of like how you can think about this. You can keep going, Derek. Keep going. So really, the one way that you can think about this is like, what is an experiment that a customer is coming into my company, and what is the experience that they will be having, as we'll show you here, where on one end you've got an unaware visitor, they don't know you exist, and at the other end they're a happy customer. Okay, so we call this kind of the customer factory, also the pirate metrics. So it's a way of thinking, how do you want to craft that experience for all your customers that are coming through and really using your product or your service. And so there's a few different components to it. Essentially, and you can think about this, like they use oftentimes as the example of Walt Disney, right? So, how do you identify your first users? How do you make someone come to Disney essentially? Once you're in Disney, there's like all these different ways of thinking of how do you engage people that knows who Disney is or are at Disney. So I'm just going to show you like the 5 big strategies, which we call the pirate metrics. So you see here acquisition, activation, retention, revenue, and finally referral. And so essentially what you're saying is these are like the 5 ways that I'm engaging a user or a customer within like the product or service that I'm trying to sell. And it's a really easy way of thinking on, how are you making an experience that not only they know who you are, but they are constantly engaged with who you are. And, there's other strategies such as, you make sure that they are continuously engaging with you, or they're referring other people that are engaging with you. I'll show you great examples. Who here has Snapchat? Yay. How every time you send a snap each day, eventually, you're at 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, 6-day. Well, that's just a great strategy for retention, right? So they know that if they can get you every day on the app, sending that same Snapchat to that same person, it's part of that retention strategy. For anyone that uses Duolingo, same thing. They know that, if you go on Duolingo every day and practice your language, after a while, they'll say, you've been on it 7 days in a row, keep it up. And they'll keep just telling you you're doing a good job. It's on one end, it's good, but on the other end, it's really just a strategy of trying to get you more engaged with the app. You can keep going.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, like HelloFresh and these food delivery companies are huge on referrals, right? So they're always making crazy offers. I think everyone who starts HelloFresh gets the first box free because their referral strategy is just so strong.
Yeah, thanks for that, Derek. Yeah, so okay, so back to my traction roadmap. So if you think about it, you can keep going. All of the, like, it doesn't matter really which business model you choose. Keep going. The way that we kind of use it is, you can actually start at the end and think, okay, what is like the minimum success that I think this can actually become, right? So, if I'm launching an app, let's say in Atlantic Canada, my focus will be here eventually, but thinking about who my customer segments are, I believe there's an opportunity of this to become something in 3 years where I could actually expand my product to other markets. So the minimum success criteria is really, what is it that I can see this becoming in 3 years from now? And so what's great about that, do you want to just keep going? Okay, yeah. So you can actually, go back to the last one. So you can think about your customer factory and start putting down kind of like assumptions that you have based around the users that are going to your Walt Disney, okay? And so essentially you could start really tracking, and I guess that's the most important thing that we at Propel really focus with our companies, is making sure that we are always tracking every single data point related to who is in our factory, because eventually you could actually craft this model that you see here, which is kind of saying, these are the people that are engaged with us, this is our retention rate, this is our referrals, and all of this can eventually be used and really define kind of how you're going to make this hockey stick happen. And so one thing that I want to share here that is important. As you see, it's really divided as well into like 3 different components, where you've got problem solution fit, product market fit, and scale. And so the thinking behind that is, again, let me use an example. Let's say like I have an app here in Atlantic Canada that I want to launch. I'm going to go through kind of like that first 12 months just finding a customer and finding out what this product is. And then eventually, if I'm work enough and I've got good traction, I might get to that 24 months. So the 24 months, maybe I have, in my hands a repeatable, scalable concept that I can bring outside of Atlantic Canada, that I could essentially copy paste. Okay. And that's where the hockey stick curve or the scale opportunities arrive, where you're saying, I'm bringing this concept and I'm kind of, going into other markets. And so how do you do that? Well, you do that by essentially, this is kind of our thinking of how to create a scalable, repeatable model company. It's based around knowledge, network, and accountability. So for the knowledge, make sure that you've got the right resources for the right team. Accountability. So we work a lot on, what is it that you're trying to achieve on a short-term basis, and how is that really how does that fit in your grand scheme of things, or like the big vision of what you're trying to achieve. And finally, just getting in touch with like the right mentors, customers, and interviews. And on that, I'm going to show you what I was just saying, which was related to what is it that I can do on a short-term basis that will provide me good guidance on that long-term vision. And so we use a lot what we call like lean sprints. I'm sure some of you have heard this before, but essentially it's a what can I do on a really short experiment on a 2 or 3 week basis that can provide further validation on this concept or this company or this product or this service or this customer. So if you want to keep going, Derek, so this is kind of how you can, and really it's based around really validating hypothesis. So this is what I think will happen in X scenario. This is what I'm thinking to build. This is what I'm measuring, and you're learning. So really it's like this iterative process. You're constantly just learning. So we're almost at Q&A, so I'm just gonna go through this real quick. So if you think about those lean sprints, if that box is 3 weeks, then you can actually look at your entire canvas, your entire company into kind of not only a 90-day goal, but also if you want to click again, just like you can just copy paste these experiments until eventually you really find kind of that validation that you're looking for. So before we end, we'd like to just mention all the great, network and other organizations that are part of this ecosystem that make entrepreneurship in Atlantic Canada. Some of you might know some of the, different accelerators that are offered across Atlantic Canada, as well as, NDIF and Innovacorp and other institutions that help make entrepreneurship what it is in Atlantic Canada. So yeah, I think I've gone through everything. Considering it's Q&A, I'm just gonna do maybe, yeah, Karan, am I up?
Yeah, I think that was great. Thank you so much, Derek and Julian. It was great learning about the Lean Canvas from both of you. And now I'm gonna open the floor to any questions from the audience. So audience members, if you have a question, feel free to throw it in the comments and I will get it to our presenters. And our first questions are already starting to roll in. So the first question for you guys is, what are some examples of strategies for businesses to keep the engagement of their customers?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think it really kind of depends on who your customer is, whether you're talking to consumers or you're a B2B play. I think making sure that your product is sticky, that there's a reason, as Julien mentioned, to go back and to use it on a regular basis. And really, I think that the engagement piece is make it useful, right? Make it something that people. We talked about the idea of kind of a painkiller versus a vitamin. So a vitamin is kind of a nice thing to have. A painkiller is something, especially from a B2B perspective, that an organization is going to use regularly, because if they're not using it regularly, then they're higher likelihood that they will churn. So it's really I don't like the word strategies, because really it's all about utility of the product, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can jump on the second question. Yeah. Is there a way to find Canvas online? There is. If you go on leanstack.com, you can create your own account. I will also say that Propel, we're always looking to have companies in our program. So it doesn't matter if you're at, as I was saying, that napkin, I've got an idea, to I've got early revenue. If you go on propelict.com/apply, we're always looking to support companies in Atlantic Canada.
Yeah, and I think one of the big benefits of the online canvas is that when you're doing it online, as you start to test your assumptions, you're able to go in and change those critical assumptions that you're applying to sort of the way you're operating. So I think that online way is a great way to do it. We have another question that just rolled in, and to clarify, could you just explain the difference between B2B and B2C, and maybe some of the differences that would make in terms of like how you're marketing products and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. So B2B, is just an acronym that means business to business. So that means you're selling directly to businesses. So, it's probably a little bit more complex sale. There might be multiple stakeholders that you're selling to. You need to, it probably requires 1 or 2 meetings. at least, there's depending on how much your product is, there might be, different parts of the organization that you need to talk to, from finance to IT, to marketing to sales, in order to get that deal across the line. B2C just means you're selling directly to consumers. So, HelloFresh is an example of selling directly to consumers. There's probably some good strategies for businesses. Back to that question about engagement, around, getting feedback from your customers, using retention programs. And then I think in terms of B2B, again, it's more what I was saying about just that real value for the customer. But I hope that answers it.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. That does.
I can tackle this one if you want. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're having another question roll in right here. When filling out the lean canvas, which parts should be completed first, then second, or so on? What's the best order, in your opinion, to go through it?
Yeah, so I think Derek alluded to this earlier on, where you're kind of starting on the sides of the problem and the customers. Really, I would say even as EIRs, we spend most of our time with that, because a lot of times, people don't have what we call like false validation. They think that the product or the service is answering a problem when there's like a biased innovation, or the innovator's bias in this situation. So you start on the ends, then you work your way kind of in the middle, trying to see like what can you build as an interesting value proposition for them, to eventually try to complete the remaining of the canvas. Derek?
Yeah, I mean, they're all assumptions, right? And so, I agree with Julien. You start with the problem, and you start with the customer, trying to define those, and then you're trying to validate that. And the rest of it is really assumptions. And so as you learn, maybe your value proposition changes, maybe your revenue model changes, maybe your cost structure is going to change as a result of having to pivot or whatever. So they're all just assumptions in the beginning, but it's good to get something down as a starting point, so that kind of what you need to test.
All right. There's
one more question that just rolled in. That's a pretty good one for you guys. So what if a company is in a monopolistic competition where it's hard to progress? What can the company do to maintain their business and get more customers?
First of all, the French side in me had to Google what monopolistic means, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the barrier to entry, it's interesting. There's a great book on this, which I'm gonna look up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, you look up the book. I mean, it's super interesting. This is where you really get into that idea of, and the word is just gone, but like disruption, right? And so, probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would have looked at the taxi industry and said that was pretty monopolistic. How are you going to break into that? And Uber and Lyft managed to do that. So I think, in general, I think startups should focus on, a really small, tight, easily accessible market, and start there. Really, if you're providing value for customers, they're going to buy. It's certainly, I wouldn't go head to head against a monopoly company like, Eventbrite or something like that, where they've got a really big market share. And Julien, I know the book you're talking about.
It's well, Peter Thiel, 0 to 1. You should. I don't know who posted the question, but it's kind of interesting, because it just gave the example, like people that have a monopoly pretend that they don't have one just because they know of the advantage they have. So they were giving, I think it was Google as an example, compared to, because really that's I don't know in which context this question is. Like, I don't know if he's having a hard time of like that barrier to entry to compete in a certain market. But at the end of the day, that's, I think, what everyone is trying to look for. But anyways, yeah, 0 to 1, good book for you.
Perfect. I think that's a great note for us to start wrapping things up. So thank you so much for your presentations and insightful answers to those questions. And with that, we've come to the end of the workshop part of today's networkship, which means now it's time to network. So before we do that, though, I'll give you the lowdown on the hop in networking and how it works. So we're going to try something a little different today. In the past, what we've done is we've sent you away to network with little direction on what to talk about. So today we're going to give you a mission to share the thing you are most passionate about. It could be what you're working on in a startup or hobbies like snowboarding, dog grooming, nail art, music, whatever you want. Share what makes you curious and joyful in the world. The person on the other end could share the same, or they could put you in contact with someone who could help you explore and reach your passions. Or it could just be a great conversation. So you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. That being said, here's how you join. Click on the networking tab on the left side of your screen. Share your camera and audio. You'll be matched randomly with someone else in the room for 3 minutes. And once that is over, you get matched with someone else and the process continues. Share your passion, listen to theirs, and repeat, and you can stay as long as you'd like. The first time you try networking, it may seem a little scary, but we promise it isn't. And if a conversation isn't great, no worries. You'll be matched with somebody else in just 3 minutes. Myself, Julianne, and Derek will be there, as well as many others. So don't log off just yet. Come say hi in networking. I would like to thank you guys again for your presentation and taking the time to be here this afternoon. And I'd also like to thank all of the audience for joining us and participating. I hope to see you all again for the second Women Leading Startups Fireside Chat on Tuesday, October 20th at 12 Atlantic or 12:30 Newfoundland. Also, our next net workshop is Take on Tech, a hands-on introductory technology training to learn some foundational skills and concepts. Take on Tech is November 5th at noon Atlantic or 12:30 in Newfoundland. See you all in networking.